back to another exciting episode of the Team Lead Talks podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Becker, and today we have the privilege of welcoming Jen CLUFF of the Texas Haven Home Group out of San Antonio, Texas. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Nice to be here, Andrew.
You too. So let's just jump right into it, if we may. The question I always start with here, Jen, is how did you get into real estate? Can you walk us through your history here a little bit before we kind of dive a little bit deeper?
Yeah, fair enough. I'll give you the short answer.
Sure.
But I've always loved homes. When I was 10, I wrote in my journal as a kid that I wanted to be an interior designer and a psychologist when I grew up. And I did get degrees in both. And then I was a psychologist back home in Canada. I married an American. He was in the Air Force. We moved around constantly. And getting licensed again in every state after you move there takes like 3,000 hours and totally impossible. And I got into real estate investing a little bit with my husband. And then I was like, man, I love this. Like, this is the perfect combination of the two things I've always loved, people and homes. And so it was just kind of the natural thing to, once we got to his final duty station and we knew we wouldn't be moving anymore,
Sure.
I went ahead and got my license right away.
Awesome. So out of curiosity, and just a little side note, I had a brief stint as a civilian in the Air Force for about 7 years at the Pentagon. And
Okay.
I'm familiar with, and I read about how many times you've PCS'd or moved different locations. How many different licenses did you have to get in how many different states?
You know, I didn't seek licensure. So I was always underemployed in the field of psychology because literally, like when we got to California, I would have had to redo a year and a half of grad school and do 3,000 supervised hours, which would have taken the whole time that we were in California,
Right.
and then we would have left. So I always held non-licensed positions in psychology and was always underemployed, which is a huge problem for military spouses.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you for your husband's service and for you and your family traveling around the country. I know how hard that can be.
It's a journey for sure.
Right. But let's get back into it. So, what year did you made that decision to get into real estate? Talk us through like your first year. Were you a solo agent? Do you join a team? How did you get your first deal?
Yeah, I was a solo agent. I started as a solo agent. I had met another realtor on a Facebook group that was local to San Antonio and kind of talked with her a little bit. And so I decided to sign up under her as my mentor with a cloud-based brokerage.
Okay.
And I did that for about 6 months of being licensed, and it actually was going really well. I was employed full-time remotely when I started real estate, and the goal was to always transition and quit that job. But 2 weeks into real estate, I gave my 2-week notice of my job.
That was that fast?
Yeah, it was that fast for me. And this was at the start of a down market. Like COVID was over. It wasn't the COVID craziness kind of thing. This was in spring of 2022. So it was just starting to kind of turn. But I could see, like, I have 3 little kids. There was no way I could do it all. So I gave my notice and I was terrified, of course. And I found my first clients online, or they found me through social media. And then I just kept kind of growing. Like, it was just kind of a snowball that went. And then that fall, I decided I'm too busy. I need some support. I need a transaction coordinator. I hired 1 or 2 that did it like per file, and I didn't really love them. And another team full of military spouses announced that they were hiring. And I was like,
awesome.
Maybe I should join that team. So that was my first experience on a team. Is I went to them not because I was wanting leads from them or that kind of thing, but because I needed that extra support to kind of balance work and my kids and my life. And
gotcha. So let's go back real quick. You mentioned you got your first deal from social media because they reached out to you. Mm-hmm. Can you walk us through? Because I know, like, anyone listening here, leads are hard nowadays, right? A lot of people and agents are struggling. Inventory levels are low. A lot is happening with the election and all that, craziness out there. So people are like, I need leads. Where am I going to get leads? And then you just said someone reached out to you. Can you walk us through like what you were doing, I'm assuming you continue and still do social media. Walk us through that lead pillar.
Yeah. So I don't actually, when I say like social media, it's not in the way that you think. You see all these agents doing reels and doing TikToks, and I would love to get there someday. I'm so proud of them. I haven't made the time for that yet myself. But Facebook groups has been a huge thing for me. So within my own community, within relocation groups, those kind of things. And you have to be really careful. A lot of those groups are owned by realtors, and they maybe don't want you in the group or that kind of thing. And I never I hate it when people are sneaky. There's a lot of sneakiness sometimes in our industry, which I really don't
Not a
love.
fan of the sneakiness.
Yeah,
Right.
same. So you do have to be really careful about like what groups you're joining, why you're joining them. I think if you're always coming from a place of contribution and you actually have something you can add,
Right.
that's a great place to be, right? And so as a military spouse who was forced to move around the country so many times, I know what it's like to relocate. And so a lot of my clients are relocation clients, a
Gotcha.
high percentage of them. And my overriding goal, I had some experiences where I had great realtors helping support me. And then I had some that was not so great.
Right.
And so my overriding goal is just to give my clients the kind of support I always want my own family to have. And if you're talking with people and they can truly feel that, right? You know if someone's just kind of giving you some BS or
Right.
if what they're saying is genuine. And if they feel that, they're going to be attracted to you. So my very first client ever came from a group like that, right? And she was posting and she was looking for realtors and she asked people to comment. And I commented, and then she sent me a private message. She liked what I had to say, and obviously I didn't say, "Hey, you would be my first client ever,"
Yeah. Yeah.
And up until then, I had, toured a few vacant homes and put up some videos of them, not of me and them and that kind of thing, but just like, oh, look at this house, or put up, asked listing agents if I could share their listings, that kind of thing. So
Yep.
it did look like I had a presence online. And then my second client was actually a referral from another agent
Oh,
in
cool.
a Facebook group of agents. And she was looking for someone here in San Antonio. We connected right away and she liked what I had to say and referred them to me. And then from there, those two clients started recommending me to other people.
Yeah.
And that's how it just snowballed. So
Snowball.
to this day, I still don't do any marketing, advertising, door knocking, cold calling, all of the things that you're taught to do, I've never done. And my lead generation looks really different. It's kind of harder to quantify. But
Yeah. Well, that helps if you have, for return on investment purposes, if you have little to no marketing expenditure, right?
yeah,
No marketing expenses. So
for
your profit margins must be pretty good there.
They are. I mean, I do love all my clients all the time. I've had a lot of people tell me that I do ninja selling.
Yeah.
I've not read the book or taken the courses. I mean to. It's on my to-do list, but
Yep.
I just love all my clients because I know what it's like. I know what it's like when you move to a new city and you don't know anyone. So I love doing events where I get to see them or they get to meet each other. Some of my clients have become best friends with each other, and I absolutely love that.
Very cool. So you mentioned relocation is a big part of your business. For
Yeah.
those who might not know that might be new to the industry, can you explain what relocation actually is and then how you became, the expert in relocation? And then just real quick, are these military relocations? Can you kind of expand on that?
Yeah. So, okay. So there's kind of two kinds of relocation. The one that's like a formal official thing and you work with relocation companies. And that's not me. I don't do that. Mine is just kind of a genuine, organic thing. So because I've bought sight unseen many times, every time I bought a house, except for my current one that we built here in San Antonio, every time I've bought a house, I've bought it sight unseen. And I've had to rely on looking at Google Maps and the satellite view and what my realtor is showing me and that kind of
Right.
thing. And so to understand what that is like for people, it speaks volumes to them because everyone's afraid to do that, or
Yeah.
most people are afraid to do that, right? So I help a lot of people who are relocating. A lot of them are military, a lot of them are not. My first ones were civilians, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
But Texas is a state that people are wanting to move to.
Right.
I moved here from California. I was in California because the Air Force put me there, but I moved here
Okay.
from California. There's a lot of other people moving here from California and stuff as well. So I think the key isn't even necessarily that like, oh, relocation is a great target to have or military is a great target to have. I think the key is really that it is genuine and organic for me. And it's an easy niche for me to understand and to help support and provide value. And
Yeah.
I think for everyone, if you can do that, whether you understand it because you've gotten a lot of education on it, if you want to specialize in post divorce or if you want to specialize in estates and things like that, like there's so many ways that you can really add value. And I think if you kind of niche down and you seek to add value, you're always going to be successful because people really feel and see that you actually want to help them.
Right. So you work with predominantly like your sphere of influence. You get referrals, but you're a relocation expert. That seems to be the niche. Is that just word of mouth? Like someone from California is like, "Oh, I know Jen. She's in San Antonio. I need help," because you don't do marketing, right? So
Yes.
you're just getting word of mouth referrals for these relocations.
Yeah, 100%. And a lot of it actually happens in those Facebook groups that I've joined.
Okay.
I will see people that I don't even know They're not my Facebook friend. They've not been my client, and they'll comment and tag me now. And they'll be like, oh yeah, you're moving to San Antonio. You need a realtor. I've heard really great things about Jen CLUFF.
Awesome.
And I'm like, that's mind blowing to me,
Yeah.
first of all. And I'm so grateful. But that is what word of mouth can do for you. And that's why it's so important. I mean, things like loving on my clients, right? I love it because I get to see them. I get to spend time with them. I get to whatever. I hold a quarterly client event. Most of them don't come, to be honest. You know, I had one this past weekend. I had over 90 RSVPs and probably at least 30 didn't show up.
Yeah.
But for the ones that I do get to see, it's a great time to have that like face to face. And I love people. So that definitely helps. Like if you're a super introvert, a lot of the way that I do business would be tricky for you. Because
Sure.
you'd be like, I don't want to show up to client events. That's awful.
Yeah, that would be me. I'm like, So you do, you mentioned like the client event, just, we don't have to spend a great deal of time on this, but what's like the cadence for those? How often do you hold them and what do you do for them?
So I hold an actual official client event once a quarter.
Okay.
And I kind of have my like go-to ones that I do just because I love them. The clients love them. So the one that I had just this past Saturday is a barbecue. A lot of people, especially because it's relocation, they haven't experienced Texas barbecue yet, or they don't know where good places are. So there's a barbecue place, 15 minutes down the road from me. And I rent out this private area on their patio. I have them cater it. They do a fabulous job of just like taking care of everything all night. So that's super great. And then my clients just come. And then this year I had like a home inspection company, title company, lender, sponsor gift baskets. So we did drawings for the gift baskets while we were there. So it is expensive, right? Like that's kind of my marketing budget is paying for things like that instead.
Right.
But I'm there for 2 hours with my clients, getting to hold their babies and see them and visit with them and getting updates from them. And even while I was there, actually, one of my clients walked up to me and was like, hey, I just gave this person your name. If they call you, they're looking for something, so
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it's a good way to stay top of mind. And a lot of realtors do things like pop buys. And so I don't have time for that. Like I'm just so busy that doesn't work.
Yeah.
But these quarterly events work out really well. And then I'll do little things here and there where I'll like randomly send Starbucks gift cards, or I'll do a drawing for this or that kind of thing. But quarterly events.
Very cool. So, all right. So just kind of going back and summarizing your time in the industry, you started as a solo agent, kind of picked up some steam pretty quick and got deals, which is hard to do, especially your first year with no marketing, might I add. And then you wanted to figure out hey, how am I going to do this from a scalability perspective? And you joined A Team, correct? Can you walk us through like what I'm more interested in the way that your team is structured. So, but I'm just curious, like, what did you learn? What did you take away? We know why you joined a team, but like, what happened when you joined the team? How long were you there? And then I'd love to hear about how you, spun off and did your Texas Haven home group.
Yeah, for sure. So I joined the team. It was not a team that provided any leads. But again, I was there for the support. Sure. So they had a TC, and then there was the team lead and me and one other agent, basically really tiny team. Okay. Another agent ended up joining shortly after me. So it was just the 5 of us. And they didn't provide any leads, but it was really all about that TC support for me. Okay. So it was an interesting shift because I went from having no boss and being self-employed to kind of having a boss when it's a team that little, right? She wants you to be on the team meetings. She wants like those kind of things. And then it turned into an interesting situation because my production quickly became more than her production. So that made things a little bit tricky. But the TC was gold. And I was like, I am staying here for this lady. She is amazing. I love her. And I wasn't going to leave. And then in the fall last year, so just over a year ago, I had a client come to me and say, hey, look, I want to get licensed, which has happened a number of times. People see real estate. If they like houses or they like people, they're intrigued. Yeah. They're intrigued by the amount of money they could maybe make. And we make it look easier than it is, right? So my client came to me and she said, I want to do real estate. And she was the first client that came to me that I was like, oh, she could actually do this. Like sometimes they come to me and say that. And I'm like, okay, well,
You'll take the test. You never hear from them again.
Right. Exactly.
Like okay. Yeah. So this person was for real.
She was for real. And she had just had a baby and she was like set. Like we have 180 hours here in Texas that you need to do. So that's high for real estate. Right. Still a very low barrier to getting into the industry. But, and she was just plowing through the courses. She was doing a good job. And she said, I want you to mentor me because I've been her agent. She loved how I worked. She understood what what I had to bring to the table. And I went to my team lead and I said, hey, my client's getting licensed. She wants me to mentor her. And my team lead was like, you've been an agent for a year and a half. You can't do that. And I was like, oh,
Limiting beliefs there, something. Yeah.
very much so. And very much like, you don't know anything, like that kind of thing. And obviously, I mean, I'm sure every agent, even ones who've been in 20 years, you learn something every single transaction, and there's always weird things. So by no means was I trying to be like, no, everything. But the fact that I was told that I was not allowed to mentor her, and that I had nothing to bring to the table, kind of thing, definitely made me take a look around. And so that was the start of Texas Haven Home Group.
Okay. So that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back there.
Yeah.
And then you were like, you made a decision to leave the current team that you were on. Curious to know if you brought the TC along with you or not. But
I did. I did.
Oh, wow. Okay. I had a feeling you did. So talk to me about like, all right, you tell your current team lead that you're leaving. Because a lot of people, what I'm seeing in real estate today, and please, like, I'd love to hear your opinion, is the solo agents are either leaving because they're struggling.
Yeah.
For a lot of different reasons, right? Or they're joining teams, right? So for the people that are thinking about either or, this is really important, right? Like, how did you can say I want to build a team, but then you're like, all right, I'm building a team, but what the heck do I do? So what were your first few steps here?
Yeah, I was terrified and wanted to vomit and was really stressed a lot, to be honest. It actually worked out totally serendipitously for me because I had just decided I was going to build the team. I interviewed a new broker to switch, that kind of thing. And then the next week, massive blessing, because I was terrified to leave that TC. I was really terrified to leave the TC, to be honest.
Yeah.
And then I was afraid my team lead might kind of backlash against me a little bit and be a little bit angry.
Right.
But the next week, there was massive drama between her and another agent on the team, and she quit real estate and dissolved the team the very next week. It was
wow,
perfect.
that's
like you could not write it better. So all of a sudden that TC was in need of a job and I didn't have to worry about backlash. And, and the rest was perfect.
Right. So for the record, you didn't really poach. They were available.
I did not poach.
Yeah,
I did not poach. And I knew that there was no way I could have. She is a very loyal person. And I knew there was no way I could poach her. So my biggest thing that made me the most stressed and worried and sad was the thought of losing her and leaving, because she, like, I'm not joking. No one better come try and poach her from me, but she is so freaking fabulous. She's now my operations manager. She's not the TC, but she is my right hand, and she is absolutely amazing. So that was the thing that caused me the most stress. And then I was afraid to hire her, right? Because I'm like, I'm still only a year and a half in. I'm now starting my own team. She wants to be a W-2 employee. Like, I've never been responsible for someone else's.
How do you do payroll, taxes, like all that?
Right. Yeah. Like, so stressful, so many things to figure out. And I really was like, I can't do this. And then Brittany, my current broker, was the one who was like, you totally can do this. Like, you should just hire her. You've got this.
Yeah.
And so I did. And now this year I've almost doubled last year's production. So
awesome. So the TC coordinator, she was your first hire?
She was. So I knew that I was having the agent that wanted me to mentor her. I knew she was going to be my first agent. So I was just waiting for her to get licensed. And then I kind of talked with, her name's Brianna. She's my operations manager now. I talked with her, and for a month, she just kind of did per transaction support as we kind of figured things out, because I was so afraid to actually hire her as a W-2.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this is so hard. And then we didn't know for sure what her current team lead was doing. Like, they were going to pay her for an extra month, and they were licensed in 2 states. So it was like, oh, maybe they'll see the light and not just quit real estate in 2 states altogether. Right. But they did. They still went through with it and whatever. So she was my first hire, and I stayed with just me and the one agent and my operations manager for a month or 2. And then I spoke with another agent who'd been on the previous team with me, and she had just let her license go inactive when the team fell apart because she wasn't sure what she was going to do. Yeah. So we talked, and she wanted to come join the team. So then I all of a sudden had 2 agents and me and the operations manager. And then from there, I was like, okay, I want to stay really small. I don't want to grow bigger. Because I don't provide leads either. And I get that that's really unusual for teams, is usually they provide leads. But from my perspective, 1, that changes the split that I'm taking because I'm not providing leads. But 2, it gives them a chance to have full access to my playbook, to
Sure.
my marketing, to my skills, to my reputation, all of these things. And when you're working with someone who is essentially doubling their production year over year,
Sure.
there's some value there. And so I get that not every agent would see that value, but thankfully these agents do.
Cool.
So they came on with me. And then this summer I went ahead and hired another agent, but to be non-producing and be my showing partner, just because things were getting a little bit crazy. So we have it in the contract for her to not produce.
Okay.
And then we went ahead and hired a virtual assistant to act as the TC so that my operations manager could really just focus on operations.
Cool. That's awesome. So let's talk about the operations manager. She started, we know the history now and where you got that and where that came from. She started as your transaction coordinator. Everyone knows what that means, get it from contract to close, but then you promoted her to this operations role.
Yes.
What do you have, like, how did you make that transition? And then what do you have her doing on a day-to-day?
Yeah. So when I hired her as the operations manager because I already knew, since I got to work with her for the last year, I already knew what she had to bring to the table and what she could do. And so she had already been handling things like doing the social media posts and things like that for our last team. So I automatically had her come on for those. But then on my team, I have her really being truly my right-hand person, my partner in the business, in the growth and the development of Texas Haven Home Group, and then in me as an individual agent, since I'm still producing as well. So she helps handle all the things like organizing the client events, taking a look at our numbers. How many leads have I had? How many actually converted? Where did they come from? Those kind of things. So really from the actual business analytics side of things, she handles all of that. She still handles a lot of client communication. She's a licensed realtor as well. So a lot of times I'll start a group text with me and her and the clients, especially if I'm going to be on vacation or something, just so that there's a way for them to get like a really quick answer if I'm on the top of a mountain and don't have cell phone service or something like that. So she kind of does it all. She's absolutely amazing. So then I realized like she's too busy. Like I'm still producing so much. Now there's two other agents. She's doing these business things and doing the TC stuff. And that was just too much. And so then that's when I hired a virtual assistant. And
to do transaction management. And does your director of operations, does she oversee the transaction coordinator?
Yeah, she does. So there's honestly still some things as far as like transaction coordination pieces that Brianna's involved in that ideally she shouldn't be involved in, but there's a little bit of a learning curve. I mean, we just hired the VA in August.
Okay, so relatively new, a few months now.
Right. And and she's remote. She's over in the Philippines. We used an agency. So there's a little bit of a learning curve with her. She's doing a great job. Like we're happy, but there's still just some things, so Brianna's doing things like tightening up our SOPs and stuff like that to make sure that the TC is really aware of all those things and on board. So Brianna kind of gets copied on all of the emails for transaction pieces still, just so she can kind of have that oversight.
Yeah. Well, you talked about two things that like I'm obsessed with right now and have been obsessed with for a while. Number one is like you seem to know your numbers, like the metrics and data analytics to run. And it seems like to me that you're running your business like a true business, like looking at what's actually working, not just guessing, right? And making decisions off that. And then my second favorite thing, you call them SOPs. In our businesses, we call them playbooks. Let's talk about both though. Let's dive into like data and analytics. So what are numbers and what are, insights that you rely on to know, what the heck is happening in your company? Can you walk us through how you collect it, and then, how often do you look at them, and how do you use those pieces of information to make better business decisions?
Yeah, definitely. Honestly, that is a newer piece for me as well, probably in the last 6 months, right? Because there's only so much you can do at once. And it's been 2.5 years since I even got licensed. I homeschool my 3 kids, so I'm very busy and have them.
Yeah. You just dropped that now?
Sorry. Yes. They're upstairs watching TV at the moment until the babysitter gets here in like 4 minutes.
Nice.
And I was like, you have to be very quiet this morning.
It's okay. We've had kids interrupt before. No worries.
There you go. But it's kind of one of those things where I'm so grateful for the production that I have, and I'm so grateful for my business to be the way that it is, but it has been more difficult to find time to work on the business instead of just in the business.
Right.
And so this year I've tried to be really, really intentional about despite almost doubling my production from last year, finding time to do that. So right now we probably really review it quarterly. I would like to get to the point where we are reviewing it monthly.
Okay.
And thankfully, this is kind of a slower time of year for me. Every year, this is my third Halloween season, but I found that Halloween through New Year's is kind of my quieter time. So
Yeah.
I still have a number of deals that are about to close in November and December and stuff, but it's not like there's not 9 deals closing this month and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's a better time to focus on the business and those systems. But I do think a lot of people can get caught in treating it more like a hobby and not like a business. And not knowing how much they're spending, not knowing how much they're bringing in, not knowing what lead generation activities are actually bringing them leads or how many conversations they need to convert.
Yeah.
And then if things aren't going how they want, they don't know what to do.
Right.
And that's my big thing is thankfully I've not been in that position, but I do know that because of what we're tracking, if I'm ever at the point where I'm looking 90 days out and saying, oh crap, like I don't have the number of deals coming up that I want, I can go back and look, okay, what activities have I been doing? And why don't I have the same outcomes 90 days out? And I can look back and say, okay, and the times where I was the busiest, what activities was I doing? How many sellers do I need to meet with to close how many deals?
Yeah.
And if you know that, it really breaks it all down to a formula. Your business can be totally system and formula based.
Yeah. Numbers, right?
Yeah, it really can.
I love that. So how are you collecting this information? How are you displaying it? Like, how are you actually looking at it? Like, how is, okay, let me rephrase that. How is she collecting it and displaying it? And, how are you digesting all of it?
Yeah. So she actually made us like our own CRM because she's mind-blowingly awesome. So she did it through Google Sheets. We have like this whole thing called the Texas Haven Home Group Hub. There's numerous sheets in there, things like color-coded. There's drop-downs. There's some automated things in there. Cool. And so we put in there like how many times we've talked with someone, when we last spoke with them, how they came to us as the lead, did they convert or not? Then we have a section for lost leads, what happened with them. We even keep track of things like one of my agents, the one who was my client who first came to me, she's really great at rental conversions. So although I don't give her leads, when people come to me for rentals, I do have her support them because I just don't have time and I don't know the property management companies around and stuff like that. And she does. Okay. And 60% of the time, she's able to convert those renters into buyers. Nice. Which helps. We're in such a buyer's market in San Antonio right now. Yeah. That kind of thing. But so just being able to know those numbers because of our hub is really, really helpful for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah. I have a lot of conversations, obviously, with this podcast. And I always talk to people either offline or pre or whatever, but you'd be amazed how many people don't really know, like, where did your last 3 deals come from? And they're like, where did your last 10? How much money are you spending on postcards? How much money did it bring in? All these things, as you peel back the onion, they're like, I don't know. They're just trying to like move, close as fast as they can. And I always think like people that listen to this podcast, you'll hear me say this a lot, so I apologize for repeating, but it's always funny. Like, well, we're doing, 50 deals a year or 100 or 200 or 300 blind. I'm like, well, what if you actually knew how many listing agreements you had to give out to close a deal? Yeah. And then you're, like you just said, you're working backwards in numbers. Like if I have to give out 3 and I want to close 100, just work the math backwards, right? And you'll know how many appointments you need to set. So if you can do 100 blind, how many do you think you could do if you were like laser focused on like knowing what's working, what's not, and then who's working and who's not? And it's always like, I don't know, it's just like an education thing maybe. But if you look outside of real estate at Fortune 100, 500 companies, listen or talk to CEOs that have grown and scaled, they're like, I know my numbers. So that's huge. And I'm really excited. And I'll have to geek out with you later about like the number part of things. But let's now transition over to my second favorite thing, standard operating procedures. I call them playbooks. Walk us through how you do them, what you have them, how are you organizing them, and ultimately what you're getting out of it.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately what we're getting out of it is I want to be able to hire anyone and have them know what to do, right? Yeah. That's the thing. Like, heaven forbid if Brianna got poached, I will murder someone. But if she suddenly left, or if our TC, was sick or things like that, she had a typhoon hitting her
Yeah.
this week. She was out, things like that. So I want anyone to be able to walk in and pick up that playbook or that SOP and be
Yeah.
able to do the job, even for myself, because it can get so easy. I'm like, oh, I give my clients the kind of support I want my own family to have. But especially as you get busier, how easy could it be to forget, like, oh, I didn't do this one thing?
Right.
Right. And so if I have it there in writing that this is the expectation, first of all, one, I can even share that with my clients. Like, here's all the things that I will be doing for you.
Right.
And you can help hold me to this expectation. And you can know if I'm supporting you or not by if I'm doing these things. What a value add. Like, so many clients can't tell you what their realtor really does.
Right.
So to be able to show your client, here's the things that I'm actually, and not just some like random list off of Google that's like 100 things your realtor does for you, but like actual things. Like, I will take a video of the amenity center for you, and it will show you what the neighborhood pool is like when you're buying from 5 states away, or things like that, right? And then two, for like designing the SOPs, we really had to narrow down. Thankfully, Brianna even has a business organization degree. So she was really aware of some of these things. So it's easy for us to align together with that. But things like, not just like, okay, you're going to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for the kids for lunch, you're going to that. Okay, you go to the pantry, which is 8 feet on your left, and you grab the bread and you take, like, just seeing if there was anything we could get more specific on. And so we drilled down a number of times in the SOPs before we're like, okay, yes, this SOP is good and it is done, because we really want someone who is walking in off the street to be able to pick it up and know exactly what to do and how to do it.
No, that's amazing. I'm obsessed with playbooks, and in the culture that I'm trying to instill for the businesses that I run is like, anytime we need to do anything, you mentioned like making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You joke about that, but it's actually like down to the smallest, like replacing toilet paper in the bathroom or making coffee. It sounds funny or whatever, right? But it's like, that's 5-minute conversation. Or just be like, hey, Jen, you're new to my company. We have a library of playbooks organized by department. So it's like marketing, sales, that kind of thing. And then every time we have a new initiative, or we think we do, I ask my team, I say, hey, Jen, do we have a playbook for this? And then if the answer is no, we have an executive assistant, Jonas, who's also happens to be in the Philippines. Be like, hey, Jonas, I need and then like blank playbook. And it'll be like the coffee playbook. And ours are live, so you don't have to worry about like version control. But just like you kind of said, like, something goes wrong, and I'm like, hey, Jen, you were supposed to order the signs for this house. Like, did you do, then there's 6 things in the playbook to do. And I'm like, did you do 1, 2, 3, 4? Oh, you didn't do 4. Oh, why not? And you're like, well, the website didn't work. We're like, oh, shoot. They updated their website URL, and then you're tweaking it. But I had a coach, his name was Dan. He always said that having playbooks, getting something 80% done by somebody else without having to teach them yourself is 100% awesome. Right?
Yeah, I love that.
We have like tons and tons and tons of playbooks around everything, because it just makes your life so much easier. And I'm a reader, and I really like, I'm a big like proponent or fan of like not reinventing the wheel. And I study CEOs, and I'll like listen to them on podcasts, read their books, and the number one commonality around, how did you take your company from 10 deals to 1,000 deals, or from, 1 million to 500 million. It was like standard operating procedures. That is how you truly grow and how you truly scale, because everything is done. It's predictable. It's repeatable over and over. So it's not like you're ordering signs one way, I'm doing it another, and everyone's kind of just operating on their own. So for team leaders listening, or aspiring team leaders, if you're like, man, how do I go? I'm stuck, I'm plateauing. It could be as simple as that. Just get really into it. I started by doing them, Jen, every Saturday. I'd be like, all right, which ones do I want? And I'd come up with like 1 or 2, and now we have like 100 plus, right? And we do it for literally everything.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really, and it provides such a consistent experience for your clients.
Yeah, it's
right?
the same. It's brand control. It's, audit purposes, and it's like consistency. That's the big thing.
Yeah, I remember too. I haven't read this book in years. It was like a college read in a business course of mine, but the book, The E Myth Revisited,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
so great. I loved it. And I remember like my biggest takeaway from it was consistency for your clients. And just things like that's why so many small businesses fail. And that's why franchises, like 98% of them are still there 5 years later, because there are systems and there is consistency. And
Tried, true, tested systems at work.
right, exactly. And
Exactly.
you can walk into any McDonald's and get these nasty soaky fries, like whatever, but you'll get the same, ideally, if they're following their SOPs, you'll
Yeah.
get the same thing no matter where you go. And so hopefully clients get the same kind of support when they come to Texas Haven Home
Yeah.
Group, no matter who they're with, which is a huge thing too if you're an aspiring team lead or a team lead, and in a position like me where I am the brand, right?
Right.
People, it's so word of mouth driven that was a big thing for me with making a team too, is like, oh, but they're coming for Jen. Like, what if, this, that, this. So it's important for me that the whole team is aligned on the kind of service that I would give, because
Yeah.
that is what brings people to us.
As Jen the brand too, you want to ensure quality, a high level of like the quality service, right? And that
Yeah.
quality standard. And
Yeah.
and not to mention, Jen, what has it been doing for you in terms of like somebody else comes in and you have to train them, right? Like for
Yeah.
us, it's awesome because we're like, oh, we have a new marketing person. First thing we do, other than like, W2 or W9 forums and like getting them emails, is like, we have a marketing library of playbooks. Go and the blank playbook, whatever it is you need to do, the social media platform playbook, this playbook,
Yeah.
spin yourself up on them.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to hear kind of, again, like geeking out on these SOPs here,
Yeah.
how you structure your playbooks. Because we even have like a playbook on playbooks, like how to
Oh my
make a
gosh.
playbook, and then
Well, I'm not at your level.
a playbook template. But how are you, just in case someone's like, how do I even start? I know you could like Google it, but like what's in one, like give us one example of a playbook of like of a
Oh
topic.
gosh. I mean, well, that's the thing too, right? Is I think we learned quickly on that what we thought was maybe one SOP was actually like 5 to 10,
Right.
right? And so we're still in the process of designing some of these. Like, I feel like it's almost a never ending thing. Like you said, they're kind of live documents that you're
Yeah.
wanting to always work on. And I love that yours are actually live, so you don't have to worry about updated versions. But yeah, I think the question is like, how can I drill this down more? How can I drill this down more? So like, I think one of our first ones we ever did was like, okay, here's what you do when you have a buyer. And like, what a joke that could just be one SOP. Like, there's no way
Yeah,
that
that's
should
probably like a 200-page playbook. Yeah.
right, exactly. So just even things like, how do you get someone ready to go view homes? And like, I'm sure some realtors don't even think
Right.
about that. They're just like, oh yeah, they want to go see this house. I'm going to go see this house. But I'm like, no, there's this 3 pages of everything that needs to be happening before you're stepping foot in a home for a
Right.
client. For us, a lot of times it's video showings. The client isn't even here because they're relocating.
Yeah.
But before you're stepping foot, here's these 3 pages of things that need to have happened, the communications that need to have been done, the forms that need to be signed. Here are these forms if you haven't signed them yet, that kind of thing. So really everything in the business and that you do can be broken down into its own SOP.
Yeah. I think that's so important for training, and then again for that like quality assurance.
Yeah.
And then you can go back and not have to be like, well, what did Brianna do? And she's like, I
Yeah.
don't remember. But if it's like, well, pull up the playbook, let's like walk through it, and then you can
Yeah.
catch it, update it in real time if you have to.
And then if you have questions, come ask me. But if you've like
Yeah.
read it all, or we've even talked about maybe doing some videos to go along with them and stuff like that. So if like you've read it, you've watched the video, and then you have questions, come to me. But then I don't have to spend 40 hours a week with you shadowing me right here while I'm still trying to work.
Yeah, Jen, I'll give you a little bit of insight into our playbook. So we have 4 C's
Okay.
that we follow. It's like camcorder method, which I'll talk to you just about, and then it's like checklist, cadence, like how often, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Camcorder method, you just mentioned like maybe someday we'll do video. So
Mm-hmm.
we actually will record. We use Loom. It's like a
Uh-huh.
video recording, and
Mm-hmm.
it'll be like how to send someone a listing agreement, or like how to add a new user to the CRM, whatever it is, right? We
Mm-hmm.
will Loom record 3 times and talk through that. So you pick up on the nuances of like where you're going, why you're doing it, how it's working, what to look out for. And
Uh-huh.
we also use Scribe Now or Scribe
Okay.
How. Have you heard of that?
I haven't heard of that one.
Okay,
What is
so
it?
we combined Loom and Scribe How and we turned them both on. It's like Google Chrome extensions. You get an account, and then you turn it on. So the Loom records the video of me being like, log into the CRM, go to setup, go here, go there, whatever, right? We do it 3 times to pick up on the different cadences across 3 times. And then the Scribe How will do screenshots for you. So every time that you click, it screenshots it and its AI picks up like step 1, go to the CRM page. Step 2, go to setup. And then you can tweak and edit and zoom in and zoom out and delete and everything.
I
So it
love that.
saves like 30 seconds adding a new user in the CRM, but you have a video and you have a scribe. You spend 2 minutes cleaning it up, you save it, you add it to the playbook. And now when we have a new person that comes in that's, responsible for operations in the CRM, it's like, how do I add a new user? They can watch a video, then they can see the checklist. It's like, did you log in? Did you add their name, their email, their phone number, their headshot? Did you share their credentials with them? It's like what has to happen ultimately is like a final quality check at the end of it, but they're bringing themselves up to speed faster and I'm not even involved in it anymore.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's the thing, right? Is it systemizes and it frees you up in a way that nothing else does.
Right.
So
Yep.
that's really cool.
So enough about SOPs. I told you I like love talking about that stuff, but
Yeah.
let's focus. We have a little bit more time left. You have other agents on your team, and you told us that part of your your value proposition, you don't give them leads, but you have support. Talk us through, because people who are potentially maybe struggling or thinking about getting people under them, which is terrifying sometimes and really stressful sometimes. Like, how are you keeping them, especially in like kind of a hard market that we're in now? How are you keeping them motivated? Are you holding them accountable because they're on your team? Can you walk us through, like, if I'm an agent on the Texas Haven home group, what does that look like? What are my interactions like with you?
Yeah, definitely. So we do have a weekly meeting. You don't have to be there. I'm not your boss, but it's very, very helpful if you are. And if you're not, then I need emails to go out to update on your transactions and things like that, because both Brianna and Sam, our TC, are on the meeting as well. So that's kind of how they really get, okay, where is this? Have you followed up with this lead? When's the last time you talked to this person? We kind of do those kind of updates at the weekly team meeting. So if you're not there, we need those updates emailed out. Yeah, I don't provide leads. And I've even seen, like, in some real estate forums and stuff like that, other realtors being like, why would you join a team that doesn't have leads? And that's fine. They're not my agent then. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
there's
then I
so
wouldn't
many
be
different versions. You don't
right.
have to, like, that's not like a requirement of having a team.
Right. But I think a lot of people think that it is, right? And so I do think, obviously, if an agent was already doing 40 deals a year, they wouldn't want to come be on my team because they'd be like, I don't have that much to learn from Jen or whatever, right? But agents that are doing, 15, 20 or less, and they want to grow, they always say, like, be in the room with people who are doing what you want to do, right? And that's kind of always my goal too, is I always want to be in the room with people who are doing, I'm going to do 25 million, but I want to do 40.
Yeah.
So I want to put myself in rooms with people who are doing 40.
Exactly. Yeah.
So understanding that value is there for my agents, and that I literally will do the deal hand in hand with them if needed. I am available for them anytime that they have questions, no matter what time. I mean, probably not between like midnight and 6 a.m., but other than that, I'm available
Why
for them
not?
anytime. I know, right? my precious 6 hours of sleep there.
Right.
But anytime that they have questions, they need help, that kind of thing. And there's other things I do, right? Like, I pay for the client events. I pay for gifts for closing for their clients. I cover their signs and their photos and their headshots and the listing photos and business and all of that kind of stuff. So there's definitely a huge financial aspect into what I give into them. So they save a lot of money not having to reinvent the wheel and not having to pay the brokerage themselves necessarily, the way we have our caps and things structured. So they save a lot of money from that. But really, the value being on my team is learning my playbook, right? They literally, if any of them move to another location, they should be able to relocate to that location and do what I've been doing. They should be able to go start a business that grows and grows and grows. And, it can start out a little bit slow, but they do a great job and they're fabulous agents. And so thankfully they see the value in that instead of just in leads. And then, like I said, there are rental leads and stuff that they can convert and things like that. But overall, it really comes from the value in learning. And then as far as like what it looks like to be on the team, it's really that support, right? Like they can reach out to me, they can reach out to Brianna, they can reach out to Sam, anything that they need. Like they don't have to write any contracts themselves if they don't want to. If it's after hours, it might be harder for them. They might need to go write that contract. But that's really, really helpful to kind of have that support and not have to reinvent the wheel at all.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I think for anyone listening that might think that's everything, one of the main things too is like if you're a solo agent, can be like really lonely sometimes, right? So just being around people, like-minded people, obviously in the same industry, you start to form relationships and that camaraderie of being on a team. If you're struggling, that could be kind of like when you made the shift from the first team to your team. Sounds like your life got a lot more, pleasant, fun. Now it's like something that you're building and you're growing and you're scaling. So there's a sense of pride there. But just joining a team, if you're like a solo, or if you're on a team you don't enjoy being on, like why being on a team you don't want to be on, right? So it's about surrounding yourself with people that you're going to have fun with as well, not just getting leads or just getting support.
Yeah. And to know that there's people in the industry that you can implicitly trust. And if you are on a team where you can't, I would suggest that might be a team that you might want to reconsider. But to know that, like, we don't have to hide who is this lead. You don't have them signed yet. One of the other agents isn't going to reach out to them. That kind of stuff is really important to me. So our team, I feel like we're very special. I'm sure most team leads feel like their team is very special, but I feel like ours is very special in that we really trust each other. We really support each other. We really care about each other. And life is life. Like real estate is really not that important, although it is what like funds my life. People's heartache, people's family, people's trials that are going through, like those are such a huge part of life. And our team is really able to be there and support each other through all of those.
That's really great.
If there's surgeries, if there's deaths, if there's cancer diagnosis, if there's fears of cancer, like all of these things have happened in the last 9 months on our little team even, and we can be there to help one another, both physically, like step in and like, oh, I need to show this house for you because you can't or whatever. But then also just like this kind of support, like we understand what's going on for you. We're here to bounce ideas off of or to give you support, or I'm just going to send you, an edible arrangements today because I know life sucks for you right now or whatever.
Well, that's really cool, Jen. I think that has a lot to do with your leadership as well. So that's something that you've built and that's the culture that that's what you wanted in your head. And it sounds like you guys are all there for each other, which sometimes people aren't like that. Sometimes people are like, there's a lead in here that doesn't belong to me, but I'll take it. Like there's all the different kinds of things that happen.
Right.
So it's a huge testament to like you as a person. So congrats on building such a really cool, amazing team. Jen, if somebody is in San Antonio, Texas, or thinking about relocating, any military listeners, I don't know if we have an audience of military listeners getting ready to PCS. Maybe we will after this. How can somebody get in touch with you?
Yeah. So my email is jen@texashavenhomegroup.com. My cell is 806-778-6667. That's my actual personal cell. I've got a work cell too, but that's my personal cell. So you can reach out. And then honestly, I love my Facebook pages. So SA Realtor Jen or Texas Haven Home Group, both on Facebook, because then you can see what I've been doing recently and you can see reviews. So I always like to direct people there over the website because the website's just what I choose to put up. But the Facebook is people's reviews as well.
Very cool. And in case you are wondering, we will add all of this information in the description of the episode. So if you are in San Antonio and you need help, or if you are moving there, contact Jen. Information will be below this video right here. Jen, thank you so much for your time. It was really awesome getting to learn a little bit about you, about your story. And we really appreciate having awesome team leaders like yourself on the show.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate it. And I'm definitely motivated to up my SOP game even more.
I'll send you my playbook on playbook. Okay. It'll change your life, I swear.
I love it. Thank you so much.
All right.